There you go. Okay, call to order this. It's meeting. So 6. You basically us. Brett, the ones having the discussion tonight, not have anybody else come and talk, and so we'll open up and let Brett start it out. And then we'll go around and talk about what projects we think are extremely important and we need to get done, and that would fit under bond issue, and then others that would fit more into the capital outlay plan. And that would give Brett some structure from here to move forward with putting together more solid. So I would like to possibly talk about, see how it goes. 2 different options, not to, it's just put one up for bond vote, but for us to have 2 different ones to consider by the amounts. And it may work out as just one, but if we get down to that, we have 2, then we'll decide between 2. So that's what we're here tonight for whatever that takes. And Brett, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, and so thank you. I'm not gonna take a lot of talk time tonight. Hopefully it's a lot of you guys talking and synthesizing and analyzing all the stuff that we've been talking about for the last year and a half. And Jacqueline, if you go to my next slide, please. And so I tried to keep us on track. I wanted to share a few things that I think are relevant to your conversations, and then hopefully identify some outcomes of tonight. And so the first is this House Bill 2022. I don't know if you guys are all familiar, but that passed this last session, and that did dictate bond election timelines, and it narrowed it down to, you used to be able to pick pretty much any date that you wanted, and that has become limited. And so now, if you do it outside of a regular primary or a general election, it can only be held on the first. Where is it? It's in March.
First Tuesday in March.
First Tuesday in March. And so I just wanted you guys to know that you got a primary, you got a regular, general, or the first Tuesday in March. And so those are statutory requirements now. Don't know that it needs any more further discussion than tonight, but those are the guidelines on election, just so you have that info. Next one, please, Jacqueline. Okay, so obviously some of these are pretty obvious, but over the next several months, these are some of the bigger decisions that you guys would have to make. So bond amount and term, how much we want to do and how long is our term. Obviously, prioritize major project needs. Along the way, we'll need to continue and review updated cost estimates based on some of the priorities that you feel are important. And then eventually we're going to have to pick an election date. So those are kind of the 4 big categories of where we need to be heading in the next few months. None of them are really that urgent at this point in time. We're way ahead of it. The facility study's done. You guys have almost a year, if assuming we would do March. So next one, Jacqueline. So this is kind of from my point of view. I know you guys, some of you may agree or not agree, but these are some of the focus areas that I think we ought to consider. Safety and security is a big piece that I believe we need to include in our future facility planning. And so a few highlighted ones, we still have some modular classrooms to the south of Lincoln that I hope we can develop a long-term feasible plan for obvious safety and security reasons. And then some other categories like entryways, camera systems, and some emergency communication pieces across all our facilities to make sure that they're modernized and up to date for obvious reasons for safety and security. Long-term deferred maintenance is going to be a big piece, as you all, I think, know and are aware. capital outlay cannot take care of every facility need that we have. Districts our size are oftentimes in a pattern and a routine of what I call a deferred maintenance bond, where you can take care of some of those major deferred maintenance items so that your capital outlay plan can support other areas. And so a lot of the stuff isn't new, but parking, roofing, plumbing, structural needs, tuck pointing, exterior envelope, all of those things that you need to really focus on every 10 to 15 years. And so that's kind of not fun stuff, but stuff that in my mind, we really need to put some time and energy and focus on to prevent future emergency repairs and preserve our facility values. And then efficiency and strategic planning. So I really do believe that we should consider how to reduce some of our building and facility footprints. One idea to do that would be to, and this is just one idea, I'm not saying that's the one all and be all, but somehow reduce our facility footprint in some way, in some manner. I do believe there's some options to where we can do that in order to reduce long-term operational costs and enhance instruction. And then playgrounds and play spaces, if most of our facilities have not had any significant upgrades in quite some time. Next one. So some ideas for tonight. Using our facility study to guide our decision making. We had a lot of time and effort and energy, and we have that big list, all encompassing list of things that we would need to address and potentially act on in the next 10 years. Obviously, tonight and future meetings, we'll need to identify and prioritize some of the major project areas. Aligning those to project scopes and balancing what capital outlay can handle, what a future bond might be able to handle. And so next one, Jacqueline. So what do we want to, what would I hope to accomplish tonight? And this may be too much, guys. And if it is, we could just keep working on it in future meetings. But as we discussed tonight, are there, and there's going to be many more than 3 to 5, but at the end of tonight, could we get closer to, hey, what are the top 3 to 5 major focus areas for a future bond? Can we identify and come away with 3 to 5? And there's gonna be more smaller ones, medium-sized ones, but just kind of general focus areas so that we can continue work. What additional data do we need? Do we need additional costs, timelines, site analysis? And so any of those things. And so I have 4 pieces of chart paper so we don't forget. So if you have an individual board member have a question related to one of these areas, you have some sticky notes, you can put it up there. Hopefully we have a little bit of discussion time. If we ever get to something, you're not feeling like enough time or effort was spent on it. We didn't have time for it. It's something you'd like to talk about in the future. Feel free to put it over here in a parking lot. That way we don't forget about it and we can develop a list that we can continue to circle back to as a board and as a group. At some point, we will need to talk about community engagement and what that looks like. Who do we need to engage? Who do we need to talk to? How do we solicit that input and information? So if you have ideas, we have a community engagement piece here. And again, feel free if you have ideas. These are kind of like brainstorming sheets and pages and will help us stay on track. And then, at the end of the night, hopefully we can also, on our timeline, kind of come to an agreed upon next steps. Is that the next board meeting? Is it another special meeting? What do we need to do next? And that way we can kind of develop a plan. But hopefully these sheets will help us get focused in a good direction. And so my initial thoughts were to spend at 6:11, like 10 to 15 minutes, maybe just talking with a neighbor or your partner, just to kind of get ideas going and start making notes or topics and kind of get your thoughts on these 4 areas. And then each of you share out kind of what your conversation sounded like. And then the rest of the night's yours to talk and to do however you guys would like to do it. But I know it helps me if I can talk through with a small group first and then share out at the big group. Questions?
So I would like for us to start out with concentrating on what you all think is prioritized. In for each of the buildings. Like,
I would say we need to set a, what's the dollar limit,
yeah,
dollar limit that you think capital outlay can handle? Versus dollar limit you think needs to be on a bond issue? Do you think capital outlay over the next 5-10 years can handle anything under $100,000? You think it can handle anything under $150,000? Or is that the threshold that you got to think about putting on a bond?
Right.
So we need to figure that out. And whatever, and if we're going off of this list, if there's a new list or what we're going off of. But, you know, and I think you just need to figure out, okay, are we gonna spend the next 10 years capital outlay fixing everything that's under 100 grand? But you know, 10 years from now, 100 grand is gonna be 150 grand. So,
Or 200.
or 200, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that would be I would like to know that because it makes a big decision on what I'm gonna think needs to be on the bond issue.
well, you know, and when you stated that, then it's a good focus. It's just exactly what you're talking about, Jeff, because. You know, I pulled up the data here from board reports on fiscal year 2024 major projects. And I was going down through the list. And of course, you know, some of these district-wide sidewalk and curbing repair, remove all trip hazards, ADA standards. Of course, finished adding electronic door, just like Brett was stating on that. Football scoreboard, Wakefield football state. So, you know, just items like that. Some of these obviously have been completed on that or in the process, like the auditorium, sound, lighting, curtain replacement at the high school. And but some the other ones here, like you say, on project costs, even going off of what was projected here on major projects for that fiscal year, then that's going to determine a lot just in that ballpark what you're talking about. On that, on each and then each item in each project. On if it's going into a 6-figure, if it's going into even a 7-figure. Project didn't get completed. All right, how are you gonna separate it? If these were capital projects that approved in fiscal year 2024. And some of them haven't been completed yet, then that's another project and it's in itself that we need to decide, okay? What limit are you gonna set at? So, I mean, I'm full agreement with what you're talking about.
Well, and the other thing too is, I don't know how much mechanical upgrades need to be done. We just spent $2 million upgrading majority of the rooftop units, but if we got 10 or 12 of them out there that need to be done, then we just need to do them and be done with it. I don't know how many roofs we got left, but we've been putting new roofs on buildings for 7 years now. I mean, we just need to get it done and be done with it. You know, if they got a 20-year roof or a 25-year roof or whatever they're putting on, you know, by the time this bond is paid off, then you're gonna be right back where you're at. But you know, that's something, you know, it just says right here on Lincoln, for example, roofing, there's 245,000 left of roofing. Well, that to me, either we spend that money in capital outlay and get it done and then wait for the next year to do the next roof, or we take and put every single roof that's on this list and just put it on the bond issue, and that's part of our tally. I mean, it's, you know, you know, we talked about a parking lot, we've talked about Clay Center High School gym floor, we've talked about a lot of that stuff when you walk around and do these visits, but we never get them to the, so it's because, and a lot of that's because we don't have the money. So those are the things that need to be put on the bond issue, because we've talked about it for 5, 6, 7 years. It's time to fix it and get on to something else.
So some thought processes that I've been trying to help guide decision-making has been, as I've done a lot of research and talked to a lot of different folks who've gone through bonds and some things that they've learned is when we talk bond or we talk capital outlay, anytime we put any project we put into a bond, you're gonna pay construction management, you're gonna pay design fees, you're gonna pay contingency on. And so some thinking that in my mind has been, can we separate some of the things out of the bond that we can handle and don't have to pay design fees? You don't have to pay construction management, you know.
Here's my deal about that. Just because it's on a bond issue doesn't mean we have to have an architect approve it. You know, that bond issue, if we put all them roofs on there, we got our roofer, we've got our deal. That's just our avenue of way to pay for it. It doesn't mean we have to hire an engineer to do anything. We got all that already. That's just our money avenue to get it taken care of. You know, it's kind of like the new gym floor at Clay Center High School. We call up the people that do the gym floor at the middle school and say, hey, we're gonna put a new, what's it gonna cost us? We don't need an engineer, we don't need an architect to do that. You know, as far as that goes. You know, when you talk about Lincoln, and I guess my thing about Lincoln and the classrooms that are outside, if we're gonna reduce every section in Lincoln to 3 sections, we're gonna have 4 empty classrooms in another year. We're gonna have 2 or 3 this year. So there ought to be space to move a couple of them things inside already, let alone another year from now. The only question that hurts you there is, are you gonna, 4 years from now, are we gonna have a 80 person kindergarten? So you have to take that chance, but I think, you know, we're gonna have enough room next year probably to get rid of them modular classrooms and move whatever's out there inside with the empty classrooms that are becoming available. But I'm not in that building on a daily basis. I'm not running that building, but I think that's possible to do that.
And you know, Lincoln is, when it's a full 4-section building, it is maxed. There,
Oh, I know.
and the mobiles currently support 3 classrooms.
Okay, but we're gonna have what, 3 sections of second grade, 3 sections of first grade, and 3 sections of kindergarten, and 3 sections of preschool next year.
Not
Right.
second grade.
Not second grade, so okay, first or preschool, kindergarten, and first grade. So there's gotta be 3 empty classrooms somewhere.
You gotta remember, one of the preschool rooms is not.
Well, that's
they were
fine.
using
Okay,
is not
so
big enough to.
Get rid of one of them next year and then get rid of the other one the next year. I mean, you're gonna have empty classrooms if we're gonna, and our goal was, you know, to go to 3 sections in that building is what we were told was the deal that we we're gonna do. So in the next year or so, that's gonna happen.
Sure, and that's what we know now.
Yeah, well, and I agree.
And so when you look at facility planning, that's what I've read and what everything you say, you go up to 80% capacity, so you always have room to be able to grow and to fill that building. If you're gonna invest in a building, don't invest in it and have it at 100% capacity on year 1.
Okay,
That's
So-
what I've always been told.
okay. Well, that's fine. I mean, but I'm saying if we want to get rid of one of them modular classrooms this next year, we got the room to do that. I would think, but maybe I'm wrong. As far as that goes.
So going back to your question about focus areas, and I like a bare bones option. And then the other one is more of a Cadillac, but to me, the bare bones is security, HVAC, roof, you know, ceilings, roofs, walls.
The 2 parking lots we have,
What's
the high school and the middle school. I mean,
that's fine. I mean, the high school's terrible. You got rebar sticking out of the ground. You know, and whether you repair it or you know, and my other thing about that is, do you grind off half of it and overlay it with something, or do you tear it completely out and go to asphalt instead of concrete?
And so that's questions
I mean,
down the road. And
yeah.
so infrastructure,
Right.
minimum infrastructure. What do
we can't support that with our budget, those 2 projects there.
Right,
Yeah, so those are 2 that I think.
Yeah. Well, especially like middle school, you almost gotta tear that up, because every time it rains, it springs.
New
You know,
leaks.
there's water coming up out of that parking lot. So then if you put something new in there,
You gotta tear it
Glass.
up and
Yeah,
put
you
the
gotta
base
seal
back,
it.
put a base back in.
get it sealed underneath
Yeah.
somehow so that that water's not, or, yeah, put some kind of
Maybe
drainage under
tie
there.
it.
Something like that to get that water away. Otherwise, it's just that water's gonna come up through there and just ruin anything you do.
See, that school's what, 1993, so, you
Yeah.
know, we're getting, 30 years old and it's time to do something.
Yeah.
But our capital outlay can't do that.
No.
So, as far as that goes.
Would you do the bleachers at the same time as the gym like we did at the middle school or?
So we have a flooring guy that they come every summer and reseal it. And they did the middle school floor a couple of times, I think even in my time here, but anyhow, Paul, he believes that floor can have one more sand, it'd be just fine.
The high school,
Mhm. Yeah,
For how many years would that last?
I mean, 10 years.
Oh,
And if we move the roofs over to a bond, that would be more likely to be approved, then we would have capital outlay to help do these classroom improvements, the cabinets, the you know, the non-mechanical things that really need to be upgraded. Better than nickel and dime, and we just don't have the access to do right now.
And Jeff, you'll know more about this than I will, but after digging in, from their list, that list that we came up with was like everything that could
Oh,
possibly
yeah.
conceivably come up in 10 years. And is a list, and so a big ticket item was the air handlers at the middle school. And I kind of dug into that with 3 or 4 different people in that arena, and they're saying, really, the only time you go and knock out walls and take those out is if you're doing a major renovation of the building. Otherwise, you have money in your capital outlay plan, and if something goes wrong with one,
yeah,
you
because,
just fix it as it goes.
yeah, that's 1.2 million
Yeah.
listed on here.
And so like
And
that
those
one-
are what they call VAV boxes, which are individual, coming off that chiller, that's the air that
Yeah.
flows through the system, so.
And so that was some feedback that I've received was, yes, they're gonna start having some issues probably in the next 10 years, but
30 years, yeah.
it is not value in your dollar to just go knocking out walls and pulling them out and putting new, just work on them as you go.
Well, I think we need to make a list of everything that is ADA required that our buildings do not have. And put it on there, because it just keeps us, we talk about that and talk about it. Not a wish list of ADA, but what we gotta have required for ADA. As far as that goes, if there's a sidewalk that needs to be put in, if there's, we're talking about some bathrooms this summer, but if there's something else that needs to be taken care of ADA wise, we need to take care of it on that bond issue.
And that's the hard part is Garfield, that there's like no feasible option to get an elevator in there, cause it was built, my understanding is a bomb shelter, and so like. You'd spend $1 million to get an elevator to the second floor for 2 classrooms in that building, and that's the really hard part about Garfield is there's just. No way to get it in there unless you spend buku money.
The safety entrances, I also think need to take priority, what we need to do to make the entrances safe, and, that's something. We can't handle.
Are we talking like a vessel, like a entryway before you get into the school, or are you talking, what are you talking on?
Well, the ones that's possible, Jeff, without just breaking the bank, yes, is doing that little bit of remodeling, otherwise the technology through cameras and that
So-
type of stuff.
There's kind of 2 options in your spreadsheets. One is kind of your base safe and secure option, and one is like complete overhaul.
Some of them had like closed caption TV, I thought.
Yeah, so let's, like some examples, like Garfield, super low cost option because of the way their setup is, but like at let's see, Wakefield, Lincoln, and the middle school. So if you read all the safety research, it is, that one-on-one conversation, physical human eye contact of who's in the building, and so and into the office. Well, getting into the office is probably not anywhere near our budget. And so some ideas that we've thrown out would be, so like at Wakefield, you'd extend that inside vestibule wall closer into the hall and then make the office wall seeing that door glass. So the secretaries can see the door, and then so you get your visitor inside of the vestibule. And they have a communication tool to visit with that security. They're in the building, but they don't have access to the building. And so, or like at middle school, same thing, get that vestibule. a
Wasn't
little
there a
bit-
set of double doors, like at the middle school and the Wakefield already, that you could make that?
Yeah, the problem is line of sight. You just
Okay.
gotta get them in a little bit further.
Well, some of those buildings, the hardest one on that's gonna be the high school.
There's.
I mean, it really is.
The only, we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. If you made an entrance in the middle, you could utilize a classroom and establish an office space, and then you get them out and they peel that way. Or you could add a smaller main entrance and have a receptionist and get them in and get them out. But there is not a great option at the high school. There just isn't. The way it was designed with those two entrances at the front.
But there are some technology things that we can do there.
Yeah,
Where they can have a two-way communication
and it's
before you buzz them in,
the line of sight thing is.
where they see them, you know.
Say our security cameras in all of our buildings are about 12 years old now,
They need to look at it.
and it's time. That's a fairly big ticket item. I think, safety and security wise, right now, all of our facilities indoor doors are locked. A lot of the districts now are upgrading to, very low cost options that can be installed on the inside of the classroom door. That are very safe and secure, that a teacher, staff member, a student can basically move one lever and that door is. It cannot be accessed by an intruder like so many thousands of pounds, and you're talking like a couple of $100 a door. I think there's a lot of little things like that would, low cost options that would greatly. Increase the safety and security of our buildings in the event of burst ever.
We're looking at 3 to 5 focus areas, parking lots, roof, security, HVAC, ADA compliance. Is there anything else that anybody else feels needs to be moved up there?
To say, what Brett brought up earlier about our playgrounds, for instance, and at least getting them up to speed, I feel.
The
especially,
transformer on the west side of them.
yeah, especially on that right there. Same time, that's another cat in itself, because some of these, just like what you talked about on security improvements. Okay, I mean, is it gonna be a high dollar, much high dollar project that maybe needs to appeal to a bond? Or is it like $200 per door? But what, just using that as an example to where capital improvement, capital outlay can go ahead and take care of that and suffice on the finances to be able to do these things. Same way with, some of our playground improvements. Okay, do we want to go ahead and have this done, through a bond? Is it gonna multiply to where the dollar amount's gonna be an extensive amount, high 6 figures, 7-figure dollars? When we decide on it in our facilities, or can we do it through capital outlay?
Well, I think we get these projects we know we want to get done.
Yeah.
And then we may have to perish, like I say, that's gotta go to bond, some of the cheaper ones, or that's gotta go to capital outlay. We gotta find a way to do it at capital outlay, see where we're at on the figures. I agree with the playgrounds. I would like to see us, when we do our thing, I would like to see the playgrounds, us extend our fences at the playgrounds. So they're not open. And then at the end of the school day, they still would be unlocked and open for the community to use. But during the school day, we have playgrounds that anybody has access to. Those playgrounds are not completely secure. Now, I would like to see us move in that direction as we're doing these as another project. that gets tied into that. And like I say, I want the community to use those playgrounds and I mean, we're very good, they use the facilities a lot and, but during school hours is that those be more secure and then unlock them at the end of the day or days we don't have school. You know, that would fall into the playground stuff. Dave, I think we need to do that.
And I like your perspective that the things that we've talked about and talked about and talk about, but never quite have enough capital outlay to do, which I think the playgrounds, I remember Jacqueline, when our kids were in kindergarten, we were talking about Lincoln improvements to the playgrounds. And they've done some, but not much. So I think that's one of those things we just keep moving back and we need to have a lump sum so we can get the improvements needed. I think it does fall under ADA compliance and security. Like in my mind, just kids need a safe place that they can play.
Well, on this list, playgrounds for Garfield, Lincoln and Wakefield are $550,000. And playground.
They're expensive.
What a great return on investment for the community, though, if they can have a place where they can play, it's not during school.
And if you have an average longevity life of it, you know, shelf life of when the project is completed. Okay, you know, that's something right there that besides minor repairs that need to be done, okay, that's something that the district won't have to look at on a major budget item until 15 years, 20 years, something like that. I don't know, I'm just throwing that number out of years and longevity, but at the same time, that's something also to look at consideration. That, okay, it's definitely financially feasible to do it at this point in time.
No, every building had it, that we own had an exterior envelope line item. And we have a lot of tuck pointing stuff that, you know, it's just been 15 years since we've done a lot of that. How do you guys feel about exterior envelope being, is that a focus area?
I think so, longer we neglect it, more it's gonna cost of fixing. We saw at the high school that, you know, some deteriorating the brick.
Yeah, especially, you know, we get water and freezing water get in, you know, that tuck point stuff, if it lets water get in behind there, then freezes and pops, you know, brick out more.
Is that something that we can get somebody to come in and knock that all out at one time or is? Yeah, but that's fine, or is that a 3 to 5 year deal? And is it so like, it's a 3 to 5 year deal, somebody just can't come in and knock it all out. You know, then I think that's more of a capital outlay thing.
So from my point of view, like. That was when I was kind of thinking of what do we really need construction management to monitor, evaluate, and hold somebody accountable for? That is so big and so much of a thing that, like, in my mind, do we need a general contractor that's gonna manage and hold people accountable to that versus Craig or me or somebody trying to bring somebody in and it's this or that, but yeah, hold, you know, that accountability piece and that exterior envelope is, we're gonna make sure X, Y, Z, D, and B are done on all of these and then. So whether it be roof drains, whether it be tuck pointing, whether, you know.
So the exterior envelope part on this is the building itself,
Outside.
because there's site improvement on every one of them too.
So like if you dig into the details of some of those, like if there was a really bad cracked sidewalk that needed replaced, it would be under that site improvement too. Or if it was, you know, the minor things, or if there's a roof drain that needed to be moved, or if the dirt needed to be brought up around the edge of a building to get the water going away. Like those are the things that are all in exterior envelope.
Saying the exterior envelope total for the district's over $700,000. So that's,
Well, I'm just saying site improvement, the exterior envelope at the middle school is 87,000, but site improvements is 900,000.
That's parking,
So that was all parking lot.
the site improvements parking lot. I think it's line itemed out there if I remember right.
Didn't you all just hear the recent, if I remember right, go through and at least grind down the sidewalks and
We did last
take all
year.
that type of stuff out of there?
We did.
Took all the trip hazards out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was cheaper than pouring your
Right.
sidewalk.
So, yeah. A doctor, I remember something had done with that. If that out. If that stuff is that high, then it needs to be put on that bond thing, it's $750,000. And I do agree with how much there is and all they showed and how extensive it's too much for Craig or us to monitor that and make sure that's all getting done.
That's something specialized too. You want somebody, contractor, somebody
do it
that
right.
knows it's being done right too.
What's that one?
Well,
That
the open
exterior.
packing and doing all that.
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
You know, make sure that the motor that they're using is good and all right. And
Buy
something
Craig a
that's gonna
nip
be-
tuck, a tux tool for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then, the only other like major area that I had, we just talked about things was redoing the traffic stuff at Lincoln Street. We have that lot to the south. Is redoing that, getting a cost estimate on that to redo that, make that a better situation than what it is now. So we can come in down there.
Are you talking about the bus barn deal?
Yeah, on the bus barn thing. And then,
Oh, like street access,
yes,
coming into bus barn.
yes, like you can come in, what is the block just south of the. Like going here, I can't remember, but coming in on that, going out, actually on Clay Street. And not coming up clear to the front. You know what I'm saying, David, that, at the Lincoln. There's a thing there, and then I think that is something that we need to look at. That would make that safer. The playground safety thing, it's on there, or it was, I think, is moving those transformers. I mean, I think we need to get those out of that Lincoln
Yeah.
School.
That's a
Playground.
very high
Playground.
level, not scientific drawing, something like that.
Would that be additional parking for the buses or the?
That's a drive lane, and then there's some parking over here that you'd have to, I mean, this is high level, just not a lot of time, but that concept of getting in.
Possibly coming over here.
Yeah,
Road's already there and. You could avoid that.
and again, there's a whole other way to skin that cat, but that's just an idea.
But I think that's something we need to. To look at.
So there's two things on that. There was bus lane and bus parking lot paving, but then there was new parking lot and road south of Lincoln.
Yeah, so that was kind of two options. We thrown in the idea of a bus lane over here, and that's where that bus.
Go
Right out up there.
So the first round of the bus
Says
lane,
bus lane and bus parking lot paving.
yeah, that was a bus lane over here, but then we kind of shifted and thought, well. We don't need a bus lane over here necessarily if the buses are gonna come in here, cause then they'll just come right in here and drop off and go back out. It was, and again, there's a million different ways to do
Sure,
it, but
sure.
And so then you're, so you're moving some of that parking then if they're dropping off there,
right,
we'd have to move some.
right, yeah.
There's that paving that. Is that paving or concrete or like where all that gravel is in front of the barn too, so that's all.
I don't think any of that was ever, priced out. I think it stayed gravel if I remember correctly, but I can double check.
Another major thing. for the Cadillac version type of thing is that I would like to look at the possibility of eliminating this building and moving it to Garfield, and you will have to do a capacity thing, how we do that. A capacity deal and being able to eliminate this, you know, at least replace the classrooms that the mobiles. Just make them permanent classrooms down there and make that a K-5 to see what the cost of that would be. You know, what we need to do that. Garfield, we talked about the pre-K or pre-K and kindergarten, how the numbers worked out on it. But just till we do a capacity thing and know.
So if you eliminate this building, you're gonna do what with Garfield?
We'll take the board offices down there.
And what are you gonna do with the rest of the building?
So the
It'd be pre-K.
two-story, yeah, the two-story part would be admin and the flat part would be pre-K.
The new addition would be pre-K.
So then you wouldn't have to worry about making the two-story AD.
As the Catholic version, one to look at. And it'll get rid of this building here.
Because if we keep this building, we're looking at over estimated $2 million in improvements.
So you can build a metal building a hell of a lot cheaper than 2 million.
Yeah. You just.
So you can build a metal building for 400,000, put board office in it.
Tear it down, start over.
Basically what Rock Creek and Boyd did.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean,
Yeah.
if it's gonna be 2 million to renovate this building, we go pick a lot, build a new building on it for $500,000. And have a heck of a nice building.
But my eyes, that's the Cadillac type of version, to check out that possibility, get capacities and see about doing that.
So if you do that and you put K-5 down there and you get the 3 sections of each class. So you have to have 15 classrooms.
Don't forget art, PE.
Okay, just 15 classrooms plus the extra that you would have to have. So say 20 classrooms. How many classrooms are in Lincoln now?
I got my map in there. I can tell you. To do,
Counting the preschool area.
so, I don't get my map here, but if you build with the 80% capacity, where you always have room to grow. If you get rid of the mobile units, the 3 rooms in the mobile unit. And this is assuming full capacity is 4 sections, okay? Kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. 4th grade. You would need 5 rooms. And you'd have to expand your cafeteria because it's not big enough to handle the additional 2 grades. If you build 2, 3 room capacity only, but I would have reservations doing that because I'd hate to create and then run out of room. So there's probably a balance in there. The cost projections that you guys have on your sheet are 6 rooms. And again, that's big picture, that's building to 4 section capacity. But maybe the middle ground is you don't build a full 4 section capacity, but maybe you go, oh, thank you. But maybe you go to a half of them at 4 and half at 3, whatever that arrangement is.
Well,
If you go to 6, it's a net of 3 new ones. You're gonna replace the other one with permanent classrooms.
I understand, but you're gonna have, I guess you need to look at the trend. And the trend's not showing that you're gonna need 4 sections. I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, I don't know what's gonna happen 5 years from now, but I can't think that. I mean, we've lost 50 kids and we're gonna lose another 50 kids. So 100 kids in a 2-year period. So the trend isn't going up, it's going the other way. Unless somebody's got a crystal ball and tells me it's gonna turn around. I'm not thinking we need 6 classrooms on that building. I mean, I may be wrong, but
For a K-5, 4 sections, you need 24 rooms. And then you also need 3 sped, and so it's more than that, but. Build for 4 sections, 24 rooms plus your Library art is expand. So maybe it's somewhere halfway in between. I mean, I was at a point where wasn't. In my mind, worth investing much more of my time, effort, or energy unless it's something you guys wanted. To continue pursuing and thinking about. If it is, I can go get all that information and bring it back to you.
We'll probably take most of the bond money, there, wouldn't it?
Well, if you do, are you guys thinking? 10 to 13, 14, somewhere in there?
Where do you feel comfortable? Because I mean. You gotta look at, what can we manage, pay for? I mean, enrollment's going down, I think, I don't wanna,
What was our last?
you don't wanna overextend.
8.5.
So if we look at,
That was how much it was in the percentage. The rate.
I'm not sure what the state rate was, but it was 8.5 million in 2015.
and 43% state aid.
43% take state aid. And if you do 13 million at 0 state aid. Because there's no state aid on bond issues anymore. So
I think that
when we did the one in 2001, we had 34% state aid.
Probably depends on what the mill levy is gonna be and if we're gonna keep capital outlay the same, like if we're gonna move that around to get more mills in the bond. I don't know what you're thinking.
so. I think you're somewhere in between, depending on if you do a 15 or a 20-year term. You're in the range of 10 to 16 million. And that's where the touch point is. So to me, the sweet spot's somewhere in between there.
And that's the same mill levy.
That's a straight up 6 mil, no mill increase. No tax increase.
We keep capital outlay.
It's at 6 now.
No, I think, yeah.
And you gotta remember, when we're down at 6 mils in capital outlay, that leaves us, depending on transportation needs for that year. $400,000 to $500,000 a year to work with. That's a wide range, so it depends on several factors, but. 400,000 to 500,000 a year in capital outlay. I think, Jeff, that was your question earlier.
What's that?
400,000 to 500,000 in capital outlay a year. That's how much we have available outside our fixed cost.
Right, but by taking it from 8 to 6, we're losing how much? $300,000 a year. So you think about that, if you put the capital outlay back to 8 and over a 10-year period, there's 3 million.
Yep.
That you can do a lot with.
Mhm.
as far as
So
that
I think
goes.
to answer that question in my mind, it would be between a 15 and a 20-year term, somewhere in there. And that dollar amount is 10 to 16 million. Something else to really think about too. The bond market is really wacky right now and bond rates have jumped significantly. Usually when the stock market goes down, your bond rates get better. But that is not happening in this round. I don't know all the reasons why, and a lot can change in the next year. We wouldn't even call a bond if we did this until August of 26.
Yeah, according to this sheet here, the only way you can get to the 6 mil deal is to do a 20-year or more. According to these papers that we were given.
This one. 15 years for 14, is that how?
No, but you got $9 million over 15 years and you can get 6, but you're 5 million less than what they're talking about. So I'm seeing a 15.8 million bond over 20 years. It's the mill levy's 8.
What's this old sheet? Hold on.
They have a 13.5 million. The only one that I see that's 6 on these sheets we were given is 11.8, and that's 20 years.
What's the date on the top of yours?
October 24 of 2024.
It's a Trump picture.
These are the ones that were given out when we got those binders with everything in it for each building.
Was it when they presented in that, in
Yeah.
the glassy
That was the
one?
building bureau, Brett, what he's.
This thing here was, these were put out when they bond people, Piper Sandler came.
Yeah, from the building tour in October.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard
Give us-
updated it with that.
Did they give you new ones when they presented?
When-
And that one?
Yeah, this one right here is the one I have. This is,
I don't have that. in
this is
mind.
November. Yeah, November 1st. What do you got here? Yeah, it's a projected 2025 bond issue of 25 years closing of 11/1/2025 at 4.5%. These are the one.
that's the closing rate, but the mill levy off to the side is 6 on that 13.5 over 25 years.
So this one was more up to date one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also has.
It's in the
6
most up to date was in that analysis and Brown's board meeting. Jeff, remember when they presented?
So see, you get over here, that's a $9 million bond for 15 years and the mill levy 6 mills.
Yeah,
So here's 11 million at 6. But it's 20 years. So it's gone up, here it's 25 years to get 6 for 13 million. To get 6 for 15 million, it's 30 years.
Yeah.
So, to go in the 11 to 12 range. There's not even a 15-year option, 9 million keeps you at 6 mills.
Yeah.
So if you're not wanting to raise the mill levy, then that's kind of our threshold there, according to this.
And like to do it for 15 years. I really want to go longer than that,
Well,
whatever we can fit in.
but here's the thing too, if the bond market is crazy. And you have to go 20 years or 25 to get yourself in there, and then 5 years from now, you
Refinance.
refinance
The
it.
opportunity's gonna come.
Yeah, the opportunity will come, and-
Yeah.
but you also, to keep the mill levy at 6, I mean, you're
For $10 million. right?
You're at 10 million, maybe,
That's what
yeah,
we're doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
For a 15-year bond.
Yeah.
If you don't want to go more than 15, that's kind of our threshold.
Oh, so this was July 8th of 2024, annual fund balance interest earnings 2.5. That's a little bit different than 4.5. So,
Yeah, this one here is January 15th of 2025.
yeah, that's.
And it says your closing cost is at 3.9%, but your mill levy is at 6.03. Which is what the bond mill levy is now, isn't it?
Correct.
6, yeah. So if you're gonna do a swap for swap. That's our threshold.
9 to 11.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's a 15-year bond. I mean, you could go 11 if you wanna go 20. It's pretty much about the same deal. The closing interest is a little bit more, but the mill levy doesn't change. It gives you another $2 million. But as far as that goes, so.
Yeah.
My whole thing is it's all dependent on, cause.
Right.
If you do roofing, playground, exterior envelope, we're at 3.5 million, those 3 things right there. So if you do parking lots. You're at 5 million. So think about what else you can get out of 11 million, so you got. Not much left, 6. So,
But I think that will knock out most of the big stuff.
yeah, I agree,
We get it to where our capital outlay can.
Well, and like I said earlier, that list, this list that they have here. At Clay Center High School alone, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 items on there, 10 items. Below $75,000.
Right.
To me, that's capital outlay stuff.
But
Yeah. And I'm back to the capital outlay, and that's always been a way to generate good money and not affect your mill levy a whole lot. But we're giving up $300,000 a year by having it at 6 and not at 8. And like I say, over a 10-year capital outlay plan, if you have another $3 million.
Well, the other factor.
part of
is
that decision was made, we increased the LOB so we could get more state aid.
Sure, and I agree, because we're not getting that like we.
And capital outlay earns what, 25% state aid this year? So you get, for every dollar you generate, 25 cents of it is free mud.
free month, yep. And you're not gonna get any state aid on a bond issue.
Right.
So,
Which it was last time.
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, it has been the last two that we've done. So the thing to me is, do you up the mill levy a little bit in capital outlay and not put so much on the bond issue and get more money from the state and not tax your taxpayers, but keep the mill levy about the same or lower? You know, that's, you know, as far as that goes. So,
We get it finalized down, I think that's a discussion we can have.
Yeah.
Obviously. A little bit. But anything else on projects? And as far as areas of emphasis, like I say, just trying to give Brad an idea and narrow this down, get some.
Could we work on that, Tracy,
What's
with
that?
some of this additional data, and just create a list with you guys of what you want more information on, and then I can work on that?
Yeah, the one would be the capacity thing, in case we would go for consolidate, what our capacity numbers look like.
And when we say consolidate, you're talking about K five. To clarify, not,
And maybe it's K 40 I brought up the idea before, there's a lot of 5 through 8 schools. In the middle school and dropping down, I mean, the 5th grade,
I was just clarifying, not Wakefield Clay Center,
okay, yeah,
since you used the word consolidation.
so it's more of a, yeah, of trying to find a way to get rid of this building. That's when, can we do that? And to do that, we'd have to go to Garfield, can we do something in that place?
The parking lot, you want some more information on parking lots and like overlay versus complete?
Yes.
That kind of.
well, way it sounds in middle school, we're gonna have to rip that one out.
I think you're gonna.
But you know, what we put back in.
Or you're gonna have to.
Or
I'm
move
Either
not
that or
opposed
mill
to
it-
asphalt back in.
Drill it down and
It's
put
a hell
some
of a lot
drain
more
tile in
damage
there or
than what I'm
something, but, I mean, you can go up there after rain.
Yeah, I think the middle
There's
school
springs coming out.
will have to be torn out and tiling gonna be put in. I had several people think they think there's a spring under that parking.
Well,
Well, and while they're doing that, since they put in a lane coming out of the middle school was on the list.
We
of
talked about that to come out on Ninth Street. To go out and elimination of that congestion
Yeah,
is something that we need to look at.
We're gonna go back to dirt, where the
Right.
parking lot is, you might as well.
Right.
Do it right.
Yeah.
I would like to know, when you look at those items and eliminate all the rest of it, what's our amount looking at? Like, if you take off everything in here that it doesn't apply to those items, then what number are we at?
What number are we at?
parking lot deal, you know, concrete's $200 a yard.
Yeah.
And for a bus to go on, it's gonna have to be at least 6 inches thick. So that's something to think about. Asphalt, you know, they're gonna put more base in there than they will concrete. So maybe weigh our options. As far as that goes.
I put together, here's just a little something out of these focus areas of what you're thinking, we definitely need to have somebody oversee these and manage them. And these we can handle ourselves. Okay? Like what Jim said. Some of that stuff, really rough, and some of that stuff we don't need,
We got our roofer, I mean,
all this stuff.
he's, you know, we got our gym floor guy if it ever came to that.
Because there's no sense in wasting money on fees, you know, that we can have people.
I could see where if we're gonna add a lane up there coming out of that parking lot, or if we're gonna do that bus lane down here, we probably need to have some drawings and we need to have something done right.
right.
You know, the knit tuck or the tuck stuff with all the brick. Yeah, you probably ought to have somebody oversee that a little
At
bit
least
to make,
oversee it.
well, to make sure it gets done right,
Right, correct.
you know. You know, as far as that goes, you can hire a lot of different bricklayers and they're gonna do it different ways, so. But I think that's something that, you know, them exterior envelopes.
Yeah.
You know, to make sure things are. You know, I don't know so much about playgrounds. I'm not a playground guy, you're not a playground guy, you know, we're gonna spend $500,000 on playground, probably ought to have
And
something.
then your playground will come back to, you know, if we were to do something building wise
Sure,
too,
sure,
then,
sure.
you know, what are we doing playground? Okay, right now, we, you know.
Well, and you also,
Sorry
the other
about
thing
it.
too, it comes down to
Pre-K down there, there's,
if you're gonna do
No
something over there in
pre-K.
Lincoln, you're gonna eliminate a lot of parking.
Yeah.
With an addition on that building, unless you're gonna take away the playground.
Not where he had him drawing, it's basically putting it where that music band portable is.
Okay, but then that cuts into some of the playground and some of the path that they got made and some of the other stuff they got made. I mean, to me, but
See where it's at now.
that
Instead of,
horrible.
no, the extra rooms drawn in.
So that's going along the lunchroom.
That way, cause you
Boy,
gotta
they
make the
expand the
lunchroom
lunchroom.
bigger. So you gotta go out, west to add
To the
on the,
west.
cafeteria, cause it's just not big enough to house
Right.
that many,
But
but
that gets into that, well, we get into that west.
just a little bit. And then there was some more, I have another map. somewhere that-
I think if they were doing playground stuff around Lincoln, there's a lot of that's gonna have to be dirt work and
Yeah.
there's get level things out to where you can.
Yeah, I guess. Another one.
Could be like it's, have you been by Seco Park?
Yeah.
Holy.
Just on that subject in itself, in Lincoln. So let's say, you know, you're looking at possibly a southern, you know, addition and the south entrance for the buses to come in. You know, that's been thrown out already. Okay, and currently right now, with the drop off point where it's at. Then is that something there too that you can make additional parking in that space out of? You know, if you do move the transformer pads over to that location, and what we've talked about, where it's outside of the playground, outside the fencing area. Then there's gonna be some vacant space right there if you do decide to go with the primary focus of having the southern entrance coming in for buses. Then you have some location right there. Probably not a lot, but some location for additional parking. Because that won't be used anymore, obviously, for buses if we do go that route. So I mean, there's some flexibility to me to where, okay, yeah, you know, to offset some construction and at the same time, you're still able to maximize, utilize your space.
Well, the other thing you gotta consider there too is you're going from 3 grades to 5. Number of people going in and out of that building is gonna increase, you know, as far as that goes, so. Or number of teachers, number of staff, number of whatever. So, you know, as far as parking. All right, what's next?
Any other information you think you might need?
Any other questions, additional data? Jacqueline, you can have. Back up, back up.
I think that gives us a good outline of where to go. What to emphasize and start to get some numbers and.
I do know on this, a lot of districts at some point, when they're talking a bond issue, develop a plan to engage the community. I think you guys need some more questions answered before we get there, but that's something that we'll need to walk through, and I've seen lots of different models. SPTs available to help with that. Some districts do a facilities work group to where it has a couple of board members, some different community members, and they kind of get into the nitty gritty dirty and bring recommendations back to the board. Some do, you know, your more traditional, you know, community get together meetings, and ask questions, but that'll be something at some point that we need to talk about.
I would like to see us look at subcontracting that part out. So that we can have some unbiased input, you know, someone that doesn't come in with we want this, right? We want this, so we're already gonna be wanting to sway people for it. But if we have somebody else that does this regularly, gets the community input, helps give us the messages we need to have, that sort of thing. Even though that does cost money, I still think that's about it.
definitely a one spot. You guys, I probably won't have time between today and Monday to get these done, but so that would be in June. We feel good about following up in June, setting aside. June's usually a lighter meeting because we have a second meeting that we can throw a few other things on if we need to, since we do the transfer meeting. Is that kind of what everyone's thinking?
That's fine.
Yeah.
We got a year. If we're gonna do it next launch.
I just don't want to get down and get to the end there and things are hurt. So whatever we need to do. But we already have one, especially set up in June. Right? For budget stuff.
For budget.
And so we can always,
And that's usually a very quick one. We can add some
Your sub sandwich.
on top.
Yeah.
At that second June one too, if we wanted, because that is just entity for transfers usually.
anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? I think that's a good start, some direction. Versus structure.
You know, there is a thing and then the additional data that, you know, I'm gonna throw possibly in there too. And that would be the shelf life up here at our at the football field on the turf replacement. When I look back on the budget projections, I noticed that the original installation was up there at 990,000, but it's only projected already. So if we're looking at a shelf life of that, and I think last thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a number that was thrown out there like a 10-year average replacement on at least turf. When you have to go back with new. And when I was looking at then, if that's the case, then funding wise, how are we gonna look at that then? I mean.
You're gonna get all that advertising put back on there and that's gonna pay for it.
So the 900, remember, it's all the drainage, all your gravel, all your base, and when you redo the turf is all you do is lay new turf on top. And based on the research I've done, it's generally less than half of your total install is what a turf replace would cost. Now, who knows in 10 years?
We're still looking at, at that time, we're still looking at probably $500,000.
Yeah.
At
I
least.
guess.
Okay, so we're gonna
Well,
be able to fund that out of capital outlay. I mean, that's something there too, that, I mean,
it's like
3 years
it's
into
the
a
track
7-year
at
projection.
Wakefield's 10 years old.
Yeah.
And, I spent $540,000 putting that track in, and the estimate on one of these things was 460 to resurface it. So what do you do,
Well, that's the whole cat in itself. So, I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah,
I'm thinking,
yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
before you know it, it's time's gonna be there. And, this isn't something here that, you're gonna have $500,000, you're thinking, okay, well, we're gonna do it in installment payments. I doubt it. I mean, that's a company over.
Well, it's just like that gym floor up there at Play Center High School. They said they can sand it one more time, it's gonna last 10 years. Well, why don't we just replace it and be done with it? You can resand it 10 times from then.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just looking at something here in the near future that's gonna be coming up that we know that's gonna be a high dollar ticket item. So it's like, okay, how are we projecting? When we go into these big projects, just like what we've been discussing here. Of what we're gonna set aside and how we going to source,
Sure, and
funding
so
source these.
several different big projects in my time here. That's why we carry about 10 to 12% of cash in capital outlay. We carry 800,000 every year for things like this. And if you ever get to a bigger project, an option always is, you can spend $500,000 and then the next few years, you just build back up to your 800 and then you roll on. You can also increase that cash balance. So like as a part of a future year's budget, you can set aside $100,000 and increase your cash carryover to 900 to 1,000,000 to 1.1. You can save up for a project. There's 3 or 4 different ways to really be strategic and proactive about attacking some of the bigger projects. It's just a matter of how you want to do it.
But have we been doing that the last 3 years?
No, we haven't.
Okay, then that's what concerns me. Because I thought that was what the purpose was when we went to that turf, is that we were gonna set aside or save X amount of dollars each year by mowing, watering, things like that, and we were gonna set that money aside or at least flag it to go towards this project that we know in the near future that we're gonna have to fund. And it's gonna be at least, you know, a hefty six-figure dollar amount. And that's what I was just, that's why I was throwing this out. When we were looking at the focus areas of what we're gonna decide on here, because, you know, this isn't, as obviously just what I discussed earlier. This isn't something here that, yeah, we're gonna draw down, we got an 800K capital outlay fund, and all of a sudden, we're gonna draw down 500K out of it.
I don't think anyone suggested that as a solution. At least I certainly haven't.
Plus, like we said, 10 to 15 year lifespan for the turf. We're only on what, year 2, year 3? And
15 years is a huge liability. I mean, we can have this discussion.
Sure,
down the
sure.
line.
yeah,
I'm
so,
saying, I mean,
so there's a reason.
I've
it
been
hasn't
involved in
been-
turfs through my whole career, and they pretty much have a 10-year life warranty.
Yeah, and we never said that we were gonna take that money that we were saving and set it aside to pay for the turf. We said we were
So we're
gonna
gonna
save
save.
the money, meaning that we weren't gonna be spending it on the maintenance for the multiple fields. So just want to clarify that. That wasn't what we had said before.
And by doing the bond issue and taking care of these other projects, these bigger ticket projects, you have more money that we can capital outlay for those type of things, and whether the gym floor ends up on that too, because the gym floor is, what's the gym floor?
Million.
Yeah.
7,000. Wasn't it?
No.
Same here.
400?
Yeah.
Ish.
Because I think
Still.
it can also go in the discussion of a 15-year bond, so 15 years with the gym floors that, however this fits out and prioritize things is the bleachers. Because obviously they don't have 15 years left in it.
Yeah.
Bleachers.
And that just. I
We
can't
bought
remember
those, I
what
don't
somebody told me
remember how
about
long ago. we
those
bought
little ones in
bleachers.
the middle school. Somebody told me the figure what it costs just to do that little bit in the middle school and.
Sticker shock,
Yeah,
right?
Like 70 or 80.
You'll spend.
So I think, you know, that.
I asked them, quote for it. There's 330 to do bleachers in high school. I actually asked that,
330.
330,000.
So it'll be 400 by the time we get into the bond, it'd be 400. Get everything going.
Shoot, Wakefield.
They're coming from China, they're already at 600,000.
It's pictures on it.
Yeah.
125% terrible.
Yeah.
The
so,
new-
yeah.
is that
So I just
2001.
want to get the industry
it? It
down.
looks great.
24 years
Those
old.
big
But
projects,
it's the original bleachers. and
it's gonna come up
We
in
put new
between
bleachers in that gym
bond
up here.
and when the bond ends, those big projects.
Gene Freeman is on board, Linda Henry's on board.
Is there somebody, Brett, that comes in and looks at the turf or scouts it?
Because there was old wood.
Yeah, they come down every year.
Every year and fill it up with the new stuff and do that and evaluate it for life and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't remember how long ago it was when we put new bleachers in that gym, but it's been in the last 20 years probably.
Well, so when, since what I'm hearing over years, do we want to put the high school, the Clay Center High School floor and bleachers on?
Possibly, when we see these numbers, I think.
See the numbers, it's something you can add.
It's something to add, yeah.
Because of the timing of it, you know,
325 for bleachers.
750,000.
and, yeah, they're not gonna last, like I say, those bleachers are gonna last over 15 years, so I think that's a legit conversation to have.
To say Wakefield, that new gym at Wakefield's 23 years old, 24 years old. They have the original bleachers in there.
Yep.
You know,
Man-made, they're not gonna live much longer.
well, that's where we had them guys come in and you gotta put rollers on them, put advice, you know,
Yeah.
as far as that goes, so.
We'll get you through, like I say, 15 years from now, and the bonds,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
no way
yeah.
it's.
That's when you hope you can hold another one together.
Right, that's the whole plan of it.
That was so down the board.
No.
So,
Um,
any other comments on that? One thing, till next month. Appreciate the discussion, everybody's ideas, so just keep moving forward. It is, I think, once the school year, we get into the community engagement stuff and over the summer, as much as we can get done, and then people start coming back for school. Getting them involved in August and see where we're at in July, but I think it's probably gonna be more August as people come back to town to get school started again, as get the community and share our ideas and get them all involved.
Another one, the focus at Wakefield, in my opinion, and Craig's too, we need to tear out all the plumbing under the tunnel and do that. I don't know if that's captured over there, but that has to be done.
Yeah.
I guess instead of HVAC, it should have said just mechanical.
For ADA stuff, that'd be elevators over there.
I-
Which I think, they've got a good plan of where to put that over there.
And
So-
we can do that when you do the stage, isn't that right next to it?
Yeah, it's all
Be
together.
tearing it out anyway.
It's all there.
So,
That'd even be that would be a maintenance. Cause right now, you drag a mop bucket up the stairs, you drag whatever up the stairs, you drag trash cans up the stairs, you drag everything up the stairs.
no doubt. Anything else? Appreciate your thoughts and comments. That we can move on to the next one, which is executive session. Let's take a little break first before we do that. 5-minute break.
Yeah, I can do that. I don't think it's no.
They don't do the game changer for the TV.
Yeah.
That's how we find it. When they have.
Yeah, good one. You're right.
It is nice.
I'll see if you can get enough names on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to keep up with us.
I couldn't figure out how to use it.
So June this year, so.
Two guys.
So we got already.
It's gonna be 31 in June.
No, this is Chapman.
Yeah.
JV, Georgia's playing,
Oh, okay.
but they don't do game changer on that.
Yeah,
But
okay.
then I know a bunch of the kids on both these teams.
So I've been on the school board. the whole time.
Yeah. You're on.
There's that long. You don't get off that, but yeah. So. 15 years, actually, I'm 75 years old.
Well, a couple of kids are on the Thunder team.
Andy's over mine.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carson Steele's playing, he's playing for Rock Creek.
Yeah, he's
still playing. Yeah. Yeah.
And kids in her class.
So you,
I think
your
3.
son is.
Reese played on it last year, but he's gonna play with it. He plays center last year.
I think about my.
Last year. Oh, we almost got them both, but then
19.
Scott decided to do-
So she's been at it.
tournaments too, plus the K-18, and it's like, okay, that's enough.
And
Can't do
she
two tournaments. So,
you got a year and a half to find somebody else to do there. And when I got 65, I'm done.
Scott's gonna, yeah, Scott.
Like a couple old men in Waco, on that, we'll just come up and knock on the door.
Those are
School, I'm done. Lady wants to go next year, I'm just gonna slow down.
Those
I'm not gonna
are
play any kids. I'm like, yeah.
My wife told me that's the first thing she's gonna quit doing. is come on.
Monday, Friday
I said, good.
here,
I want to
and
beauty shop. I want to put my office out there.
Concordia. Shut down.
Yeah.
I have a schedule.
But you know, I think it's actually, I got a granddaughter, it's starting to 11.
A18 is a league, so it's
I chased my 4.5.
It's just-
Son all over
it's
Saturday. And I was like, dude.
Monday,
I
Friday.
did that 35 years ago.
But it's 2 nights a week, Wednesday, it's Friday and Monday or Tuesday.
You're on her bike.
League games, and so you play a game, then there's a 3 inning JV game, and then there's
My grandson. He wants to ride his bike.
there's,
Then he
once
wants,
you get through league play, then there's.
then he wants to kick football like a
There's
soccer.
district.
Then he wants to ride his bike. Wants to, hey, let's go back. Boston, they're almost just like Boston. Got across the road, you know, I got him across the road, he rode his bike down the side.
That's where you could run it.
For about 2 seconds, he turned and he talk to Bronson, he's no, doesn't want to talk.
He was a church, he never had a piece
on.
age.
That kid is so,
They're not familiar.
he doesn't forget. You know, he had a bag of cheese. Cheetos. In the back of his car.
But that's one of the things,
Well,
I think, yeah, you know,
they're
some of those out.
Cheetos.
We need to-
Go ahead and resume the meeting here.
So.
For executive session is that, I move we go into executive session, to discuss items included in the CCEA negotiations letter pursuant to the negotiations exception and the non-elected personnel exception under KOMA. And the opening meeting shall resume at 7:40. The executive session should include the board, superintendent, and council.
No,
No council.
Okay. So the executives should include the board and superintendent.
second.
Second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
If there's enough kids, that's you keep it like that. Oh.
Yeah.
That's bigger.
Exactly, thermostat again.
Yeah.
Well, the JV's been doing it.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting, more meetings, personnel. I'm going to approve the personnel report, including temporary summer staffing recommendations as presented.
Second.
Got a second, all those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Got a second. All